Today on GreenCars the Podcast, we are back at the Electrify Expo in Long Beach, California. It's another day full of thrills and chills and all things electric. All the action starts right now. Welcome to GreenCars the Podcast, where we talk about all things involving hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and electric vehicles. I'm Trish Close.
And I'm Dave Nichols. We are back at the Electrify Expo because there's so much going on. We couldn't possibly cover it in one episode.
A lot of action here in Long Beach. Interviews. We've got lots of those. This is 1 million square feet of vendors, booths. Major automakers are here showing off the latest in their electric vehicles.
Yeah.
We want to show you some of that action. Take a look at this.
The Electrify Expo took over Long Beach, California for 2 incredibly electrifying days dedicated to hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and all-electric vehicles, the latest technology, features, accessories, and more.
You know, one of the great things about being here at the Electrify Expo is there's every kind of demo. You've got people doing electric skateboards, go-karts, e-bikes, full-on motorcycles. It's amazing.
The selection of scooters and e-bikes alone was truly mind-blowing, and there was plenty of room to throw a leg over one of these battery-powered wonders, or you could demo them all.
You know, you got a new EV, you got to keep it clean, you got to keep it shiny, right?
The popular Electrify Show-Off is North America's largest gathering of customized electric vehicles, from EV conversions to wild customs from major brands.
Hey, I had a really incredible time here at the Electrify Expo. Back to you, Trish.
Zan Dubin, we've been waiting a long time to interview you here on the GreenCars Podcast. So thanks for being with us today.
So happy to be here.
I'm going to take a breath before I list out all the things that you've done. Okay, hold it. Bear with me, everybody. Owner, ZDS Communications, co-founder, Plug in America, and National Drive Electric Week. And you also are a former LA Times reporter. When it comes to the EV space, knowing what I know about you, I wouldn't want to mess with you, Zan Dubin.
Thank you for that compliment.
Okay. All right. I feel like we need to start from the beginning. Let's talk about your EV journey. When did this start for you?
Okay. It actually started with my former husband's cancer. Got married. 4 months later, he was diagnosed with bad bladder cancer.
Right.
And came home one day after visiting the oncologist. And he had asked the doctor, what happens if this treatment doesn't work? The doctor said, there's nothing else. So He had his moment of mortality. And he came home and he said, I don't want to put off my dreams anymore. I said, what are your dreams? And most people, of course, would say, oh, cruise around the world, buy a new home. He said, I want to put solar panels on the roof.
Okay.
Okay. He'd been a lifelong environmentalist, et cetera. So this was 2000, late 1 or 2002. And he went ahead and looked to get solar on the roof. And in doing that online research, found out about EVs, which at that point were just coming on the market. And at the same moment, the OEMs were turning around and crushing the cars. So the minute we got one, we knew this had to stop. And we fell in with just about a dozen people feeling the same way. And together we founded the predecessor to Plug in America, which was called don'tcrush.com.
Right.
Because in the beginning, that's what we were about. We were about stopping the crushing. Going on the picket lines, showing up to rallies, that kind of thing. And that evolved into Plug in America once the auto companies did sort of take a turn to be more encouraging and try to get the word out and educational and all that stuff.
And you're talking about Paul Scott,
right?
Who was on this podcast,
right?
And speaking also of passion when it comes to all things electric, he definitely has a passion for it. When you were getting into this and looking and the researching for electric vehicles, was it just something that you both felt, you specifically, like we've got to do this, we've got to make a change?
Let me just say this: the minute I got in the EV for the first time, it was a RAV4. I just literally had a rush from my head to my toes because I felt like this could make a difference. I'd been sort of plagued by this environmental guilt where nothing I did was enough. I could contribute here, I could vote there, I could recycle that. And it never felt like enough, but this felt like something significant. And of course, today we know that the majority of emissions come from vehicles. So that was it.
Yeah. And you've been that rush. I mean, you've had this passion for this long. I mean, just all the things, looking back, all the things that you've done in this EV journey, it's just one thing after another for you, right? Like you could not let this go.
Obsessive. No, I mean, you're very, we took breaks.
That was a nice way to put it, but yeah.
But, something I think about a lot is, Patti Smith has this great song. I'm going to botch the lyrics, but it's about when we're together, we can get things done. And I feel so fortunate to have fallen in with this group of fantastic people who are equally, if not more, on fire and also diversely talented. I mean, Sherry she incorporated Plug-in America. She was a writer. I did the PR. We had engineers, we were sort of all environmentalists. So I think falling in with them, kept us all fueled despite all of the crushing and all of the defeats and all of the pushback.
Let's talk about the crushing a little bit. You get this EV, you have that rush, right? And you're feeling like you're finally doing something really your part to help out the environment. What was it like to see, car manufacturers crush these EVs? What was that like for you?
Right. So our particular car, we bought it. We didn't have to personally suffer the retraction of the car. But yeah, it was just unthinkable. And made us angry, and we knew where it was coming from, and it's what fueled us, I mean, I'm sure Paul talked about Burbank, which was one of our biggest protests.
Right.
Where this was where we discovered 78, I think it was, EV1s in a parking lot in a GM training facility. And we did a vigil for, I think it was 28 days, where we made sure at least one person was there around the clock because we suspected that they were going to haul the cars away to the crusher. And so, yeah, I remember it was a very rainy February. And I didn't do that many shifts. We shared them, but we were getting up at like 1 o'clock in the morning and driving, 20 miles to go sit in a car in the rain and
doing your part.
But, when you know the truth is, and, I will say it's important for me to say that we were privileged enough to be able to do this work because not everyone can. A lot of people are working 2 jobs. I mean, we were both working at the time, but not everyone has the time to devote to something like this. So I feel it's a privilege to be an activist.
How have you seen things change in this EV world? And it's changed a lot, wouldn't you say?
My favorite question.
Ooh. Okay.
In a way you might not suspect. So, of course, just being here today, walking around, seeing a camper, right? Seeing a Volvo with surfboards on it. Seeing a whole practical city of e-bikes and micro mobility, which is a phrase I don't like to use, but you get it. So it's in one way, it's astounding. In another way, I feel the force against EVs as strong as ever.
Really?
I can see it in the media. I can see it. And we know that the big oil and other forces are still spending millions of dollars on anti-EV campaigns. We can see it politically, of course. And then personally, as an activist, I'll tell you something that has really changed for me, and that is getting pushback from other environmentalists. Because in the beginning, I call them our only natural enemies were big oil, for instance. And now I have people coming at us, attacking EVs and saying they're not the answer. We have to give up cars entirely. That's a big one. And I don't disagree. And this information has made me a better activist. And actually, I have cut down on my driving. It's not easy to take public transit in LA, but I try to whenever I can. But it was really kind of shocking because I'm like, hey, we're on the same side.
Sure.
Why are you coming at us?
You hear that a lot, though, with people who are looking into EVs and they have serious questions about the battery and it's more of a carbon footprint to create an EV. I mean, there are some arguments out there from environmentalists. So, what do you say to that?
Well, I would say it's not more polluting. In fact, another study just came out. I think it was from Union of Concerned Scientists just this week. That measures, cradle to grave, basically, emissions, and EVs are much cleaner. So it is a constant educational job. And for instance, recycling. Some of the arguments are so easy to answer. EV batteries contain very valuable materials. We know that is the most expensive part of an EV. So they will be recycled. So it's things like that. But I mean, this is where the PR on the other side keeps coming in, seeding these doubts. But we've been saying this, it gets frustrating, I will tell you. After 20 years, we published the definitive guide to EVs, like literally 16 years ago, and had all this spelled out, Little Plug in America, even before it was a formal nonprofit.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why we're here, and that's why we're encouraged by events like this and podcasts like yours.
Well, and, speaking of constant education, I look around this expo, for instance. Does it strike you sometimes as silly that you were at a protest where they were crushing cars and now you're here where it's really a celebration of all things electric? Does it ever feel like you have come a long way, right? But does it ever feel like, man, that was so silly back then?
Silly?
Silly in the way that, like, that was just... we've come so far.
Why all the pushback back then?
Why all the pushback back then? Because here we are now, again, celebrating this world of electric vehicles, electric scooters, electric bikes.
Right. No, I hate to say it, but I still see so much pushback that's the frustration.
Okay.
Just a piece I read this morning on X that EVs are in their winter, and it's just false. It's just false.
You wouldn't feel that if you were here,
exactly.
would you? Yeah.
Exactly.
What if you mentioned the protest with the crushing of the cars. What have been some other really big, I guess, fights or challenges for you in the last couple decades?
Let's see.
She's like, let me
guess. Okay. No, Toyota was another big one, but that was a victory. They were also doing a lot of crushing, and we did protests at dealerships. We literally stood outside at the point of pain for them because the dealer doesn't want you outside with signs that say, shame on Toyota, don't crush the electric car.
Okay.
And we also, as part of that, one of our, cohorts chased an EV Toyota down the freeway. It's in the movie Who Killed the Electric Car. That was Linda Nichols and a couple of her buddies. And then we had a boardroom meeting with Toyota executives, and we were able to save, I think it's about 800 Toyotas.
Wow. Which
may sound minimal at this point, but this was a multinational global corporation, one of the biggest in the world. We had no money. We had maybe, just 6 of us, and we were able to turn it around. So don't ever doubt the power of a small group of committed people. I
love that. Speaking of the good fight, you're taking on a little company right now that some people may have heard of. Can we talk about that? The essentially Disney Autopia. If you've gone on that attraction, I mean, it's cars, right? And you can smell them, as you're walking up to the attraction. When did this come to your attention?
It came, it was about 2 years ago now through another EV friend. And he just sent us an email saying, hey, took my wife, this was Eric Simpson's, took my wife, Renee to Disneyland for her birthday. And we can't believe they're still running gasoline cars at Autopia, which, by the way, I love Disneyland. I don't really like to say I'm taking them on. I mean, I think I first rode Autopia probably in 1965. But yes, so that's how it started with an email from Eric.
Sometimes it's not maybe so much taking them on, maybe a bad choice of words, but really, are you just sort of like highlighting, hey, let's look at this. Let's look at this issue that's happening. This thing. What can we do to fix it?
Yeah.
Is that kind of your take?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's an important campaign because someone might say, well, it's just a ride, but first of all, millions of people go through there every year, and Disney has such a tremendous opportunity to set the right example.
What's the progress so far with that?
So, through coverage in the LA Times, for which we're very grateful, Disney first came out and said, okay, we're going to electrify, but they left hybrids on the table. They were not definitive.
Okay.
And they said within the next few years. So we weren't happy with that. For one thing, a hybrid still has a tailpipe. Those employees work 8-hour shifts, almost within touching distance of the tailpipes. So I decided to hold a rally to get them to do it within 2 years and to go fully electric.
Okay.
So then what happened was I went to a talk by Jane Fonda at USC. Jane Fonda is incredible. And I stood up and I said, may I give you a card to the rally? May I invite you to the rally? And unbeknownst to me, I should have known, but sitting next to her, the moderator was actually a wonderful former journalist herself, Willow Bay, who is married to Bob Iger, CEO of Disney.
No.
Stop
it right now.
My heart was already pumping out of my chest, having the courage to talk to Jane Fonda. I'm kind of glad I didn't know any more than that. But I gave Jane the card, and 4 working days later, Disney PR called me at home and said, we are going fully electric by fall 2026.
Zan.
It was nutso.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind when you hear that?
Make sure I get the facts right. I think I reverted to reporter mode because I kind of had to. Sure. And I knew that I would be telling Sammy Roth at the LA Times, and I wanted to get it right, even though they, of course, called him. But I'll say it how I really mean it. It's not good enough because our chief concern is for the health of the employees and the riders. And 30 months is too long.
Okay.
As you stated, anyone who even waits online to board knows this cannot be good. I know firsthand that, not firsthand, but I've read online that, employees get headaches, which is I don't mean to be over dramatic here, but that is a very common symptom of carbon monoxide poisoning. I know I've read online that employees have filed for transfer to get another job at the park.
Okay.
And those transfer notes include doctor's notes saying this is not healthy. And so we'd like to accelerate that timeline.
And I think you even mentioned for you, it's even like a public health concern to some extent, right?
Well, I reached out to a wonderful gentleman who runs a nonprofit called Breathe Southern California, which protects lung health and such. And he had written to Disneyland 2 years before we got involved, saying that not only is it dangerous to the employees and guests, but to communities outside of the park, which means that pollution is, he named them Anaheim, Santa Ana, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I know you say it doesn't feel like it's not good enough, but does it somewhere feel like a good victory for you?
That's a very important point. Super feels like a victory. And we really want to thank Disneyland for taking this step. They hadn't done it. They had been complaints for years, and maybe it was going to happen anyway. But yes, it's a big victory, and we're very thankful and happy about it.
What's in your future in this world of EVs? I feel like you're never going to give up the good fight until, I feel like, ever.
You're sweet. Well, to be specific, tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Okay.
Let's see. Last week or the week before, we made a formal testimony to CARB, California Air Resources Board, to measure the air quality there. And then tomorrow I'm going to go to a lecture by Bob Gurr, who is the gentleman who designed Autopia, the actual ride. And I just, through the grapevine, found out about this. The public can go. And we're going to go and just have a little talk with him about it, see if he can help us, because Sammy Roth at the Times quoted him saying, you got to get rid of those basically stinking cars.
He said that.
Bob Gurr, the designer of Autopia, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the goal for you at this point is to have Autopia go all electric, but sooner rather than later. Okay. And beyond that, are you going to take a break? No.
Probably not.
Probably not.
As long as we can rest and go out swing dancing and, have a balanced life.
Okay, sounds good to me. Zan Dubin, thank you so much. Thanks for chatting with us and sharing your stories and your passion for all things electric, and keep up the good fight.
Thank you so much, Trish. Thanks.
There is so much to do and see here at the expo, and Dave is out there getting in on some of that excitement. Dave, what are you up to?
Hey, Trish. You know, I'm here at the expo with David Bernardo, and he is sort of popular, this guy, for doing EV conversions that are really spot on amazing. His company is Z Electric, and he's got a couple of classic VWs here today. Tell us about what's behind us here, David.
Yeah, people absolutely love these cars. So the White Beetle here is a California family-owned car, and the young woman who's the caretaker of the car now, she's the niece of the woman who originally bought it here in Southern California, and it was pretty much beyond repair. We restored the whole car and did our thing, making it electric, and so she's just about ready to take delivery of it. We actually kept it here a week longer in California so we could bring it to the show. So I'm glad you're here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we are too. And then this is like a unicorn. Yeah. Tell us about it.
Oh, yeah. This is a 1966 VW microbus. This was their deluxe version. That's why it has all the little windows on the top and the big sunroof. We added the safari windows that open up just to, complements the car well. But yeah, this was the deluxe version for Volkswagen. This was their version of the station wagon, and we've converted a number of these. We've doubled the horsepower in these cars. So this has 120 horsepower electric motor in it. It has about a 90-mile range. We're doing another one now that's going to have higher range, about 170. But for these cars, it sounds like a small amount of range compared to everything else that's out there, but it's perfectly fine. You're in an older vehicle, something that's more precious. You're no longer doing road trips or going to Yosemite or anything like that. So you're tootling around town and going to the beach. So it's perfect for that.
If someone brings you a vehicle, how long does it take to do something like this? It's got to take some time.
Typically, it should take about 3 to 4 months, but it generally takes longer than that because we are dealing with a 50-year-old car, and sometimes they've been sitting for an awful long time or haven't been really used. We like to get in there and make sure everything works properly, the window winders, and a lot of the electrical system has to be replaced or repaired. Some cars are still 6 volt. We have to change some of the wiring and lights and things so it's right now it's between 3 and 6 months, but when we get into a restoration, that can take a few years, and a lot of the shops are backed up with other work. So to find somebody who really knows how to restore these cars correctly, you just have to kind of wait for their time window to come up. So it takes time.
And are you guys up for converting any kind of car?
As long as it's a Volkswagen or a Porsche, yes. And as long as it's, 60s, 70s, some 80s Porsches, but that's about it. Because that's what the cars we love and the cars that we understand the best. So we're just sticking to that to do it right.
Well, they really stand out here at the expo, and thank you so much for bringing them.
Oh, my pleasure.
There's a whole part of this expo that is dedicated to recreation of different kinds. And I'm here with Matthew. He's with Living Vehicle, and they have not only big trailers like the one behind us that you can take anywhere and live in, and they have smaller stuff that you can take as well. That one is coming that is paired with the Tesla Cybertruck. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. My name is Matthew Hoffman. I'm the CEO and founder of Living Vehicle. We've been in business for about 7 years. I got about 2 decades of RV experience under my belt, so we're not new to the scene. What you see behind me, what you just referenced, that's our legacy product. That's built for full-time living. It's an all-electric, towable, bumper pull travel trailer, and designed to be off-grid, stay off-grid, and generate resources independently from charging stations.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And then next year, you're coming out with a product that goes with the Cybertruck.
Yeah, so I've been heavily influenced by the Cybertruck. I think it's a progressive, striking design, very controversial, frankly, but it's really inspired us to design something purpose-built for electric vehicles. And so the Cyber Trailer is what we just released 1 week ago, and this is in pre-order stage, and it's going to be a fully self-sufficient, off-grid capable mobile charging station for the very tow vehicle that is pulling it.
Amazing. And there you have it, friends.
Not a dull moment here at the expo. Thank you, Dave. I'm here with James Carter now, Principal Consultant at Vision Mobility. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to me about Vision Mobility. What is Vision Mobility?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Maybe I'll just wind back a little bit.
Please do.
Because, Vision Mobility is my, I guess, consulting business and for the business that I do. And so, winding back, I started working with Toyota and worked with Toyota in Canada, in Japan, and Australia for nearly 20 years.
Okay.
And, it became a time to go out on my own and do my own thing. And that's where Vision Mobility started. It was about exploring what future mobility looked like and talking to others about that. And, giving advice about different companies, what their needs were, and figuring that out. And as we've gone forward, we still do quite a bit of consulting, but we also do quite a bit of writing and social media about what's happening in future mobility as well.
Really helping manufacturers, right? Sort of
That's
look into
one
the
component.
future a little bit.
That's one component. Certainly, part of the work that I was doing, we were doing a lot of customer experience work with OEMs and the big OEMs that we know, like Toyota and Honda and Audi and others. However, more recently, there's been a lot of work in medium duty and heavy duty as they're trying to electrify and go forward with that.
When did your EV journey begin? I know you said you worked with Toyota a little bit. When did the EV part start for you?
I think the first part of where it started was when I left Toyota and, in 2015 and saying, where do I go from here?
Right, yeah.
What is the future of mobility? And, being in Toyota, I spent a lot of years in product planning. So you're always kind of on the cutting edge of going like, what does that future look like?
Yeah.
Where is it going? What is future drivetrain? What is the future customer going to want? And really trying to understand that. And it became clear that there were four major things, and that were those case technologies that we sometimes talk about, that those being connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. And, really the electric part became the dominant part of that case, those case technologies. And from that discovery of what that looked like and discovery of just how much better it was compared to the, IC, it really was an eye-opener. But there's a couple other critical pieces in that journey. And the first one was, back in Toronto, there's an organization up there called Electromobility Canada. And they had some electric vehicles to test. This is back in 2017. And I drove all at one time. I drove an i3, a Bolt, and a Nissan Leaf. And I went, wow, my IC car, my IC car's fast. It's a WRX. This is fast, but these things are better.
Wow.
Why? I couldn't understand it. My car was noisy and slow, and I couldn't believe it. And so that was the first real eye opener. And from then on, I was like, okay, next car, without a doubt, despite where the industry is going, despite whatever's happening, my next car is going to be EV. The second point came when that same WRX, the lease ran out, and I went, okay, we've got to find something. Okay. And, I jumped in what was then a new Tesla Model 3. So this was probably early 2019 and went, wow, this is amazing. This is way better than that WRX that I had. This is light years in front. And so, it's a combination of understanding where that industry journey has gone, but also that personal journey as well.
Sure.
Just that personal discovery. And I think that's really important, when people come here and they look at, what Electrify Expo is doing and having that personal experience for the first time, that is a big part of it too.
And I want to talk to you a little bit about specifically within Vision Mobility. I'm sure you hear a lot of things pushback when it comes to the electric world. For instance, the grid won't keep up. What do you say to that?
Well, I think, I'm going to speak generally first and then I'm going to come back to that. But there's a lot of things out there that in electromobility that I don't think people have really got their heads around just right. And, there's a lot of education that still has to be done for people to understand what's going on. And there's been a lot of recent EV sentiment that's been negative, tied with, some industry problems that have been happening. But, coming back to the grid won't handle it. The way I look at it is there's not going to be a generation problem. And the reason I say there's not going to be a generation problem is because putting in new generation with wind and solar is pretty cheap. It's not like a 10-year, 15-year problem that you're building a coal or power plant. The ability to react nowadays is very, very fast. The problem with the grid is more on specific distribution points, distribution nodes where you require a grid upgrade when you require big power sources. Now, this is not really a problem with residential, but it is a big problem when it comes for truck charging.
Yeah.
And, they need a lot of power and they need to figure out how to do that. And what they've found and their way around it is not dissimilar to that distribution problem, generation problem that we talked about. The way that they're doing it is generating their own as a kind of a semi-islanded or islanded microgrid, charging the truck from that and moving forward. And what we've seen is that a lot of the truck depots, they already have solar on their rooftops.
Right.
And they go, oh, wow, it's halfway there.
Yeah.
I can put in a battery and I can put in a truck charging thing and, off I go. Obviously there's cost, obviously there's problems, but the problem is will the grid cope? To me is not an issue because there's ways around that we can make this happen.
Okay. What about EVs are worse for the environment, actually? That whole, the carbon cost of just making a battery, for instance.
Well, there's different ways and there's different issues when you can't, and generally we call the carbon in the vehicle itself, when we're building the battery in the vehicle, we call that embedded carbon. And so when we have a look at that as embedded carbon, there's a lot of potential issues. Where was that vehicle made? Where was that battery made? Where are the parts of that battery coming from? So, what we're seeing is that battery companies are starting to choose, and car companies are starting to choose areas that are low carbon in their grid so that they can make these vehicles and these batteries much, much more, not only cheaper, but with less embedded carbon in. Okay. So if you make a battery in some parts of China with a whole coal grid, that's going to be a completely different story than if you make it in, say, Quebec, Canada, where it's all hydro. So very, very, very different there. So the question is, okay, then we've got this. Let's do the math. The problem with carbon in IC vehicles is the carbon all happens in the use phase. So when you're driving the vehicle. So because they're not zero emission like an EV is. So you say, well, does that embedded carbon that we have up front offset that use case carbon?
Okay.
Almost always it does. Even on a coal grid, even if those batteries are coal made, we still see it offsetting. Wow. And it's just wild. But when you drill down to have these vehicles that are, made with green electricity, the gap becomes this. It's wild. It's great.
Let's talk about trends a little bit because I know this is a big part of what you do, but specifically what's really standing out to you right now when it comes to trends in the EV world? Yeah. So, in terms of trends, I think what we've seen really is this current negativity because, and really has come from an economic impact of high interest rates and whatever, and a general slowdown, particularly in automotive. But what I see as a trend in EVs is really nothing's changed in a general greater picture. And this is really what I was talking about earlier, is that we've gone through some lumps. Sure.
But nothing fundamentally has changed in the direction of EV adoption, in the direction of rollout, in the direction of new models that are coming out. They're still coming thick and fast. Consumers are still buying them at 20, 30% above last year. We see a lot of negativity, but that's not reflected in the sales figures.
But that's a good thing that we're
100%.
Okay. All right. That's a good thing. Why are people buying EVs these days? Is there one big reason that stands out, or are there a couple? Who's buying electric vehicles right now?
Yeah, good question. So I think there's a few different areas that people are keying on. If you're looking at fleets, they're really thinking about their ESG component.
Sure, yeah.
And they're really thinking about, well, I really do need to move forward in terms of reducing carbon, in terms of reducing emissions. And for them, that's a driver, and it can be a big driver. In terms of private buyers, I think there's three or four things that I think people are looking at as drivers for going EV. One is fuel savings. Mm-hmm. Sure, they're paying more up front, but they realize, there's fuel savings and they don't have to visit a gas station. Right. And trust me, that is a big driver. That is a much bigger driver than people might imagine.
Okay.
The second thing is, general environmental things. And, there's a type of buyer that doesn't, some resonate with that, some don't. I get that. Mm-hmm. But, I think as we move forward, and this was talked about in one of the panels that we had today, is that the real focus is going to be that total cost of operation. Okay, you might pay more up front, but in the long run, because there's almost no maintenance, because you're paying much less for energy, you're going to be much better off after, X amount of years. And that X amount of years is becoming less and less every year.
Right. Yeah. And because we're also seeing these electric vehicles are lasting for a long time. That's another sort of myth I think that's out there, that it's how long is this car going to last me? Right.
Correct. I think that's one thing we're seeing is this, from back, when Leaf and Model S first came out, these batteries really weren't lasting all that long and they needed a replacement. However, now we're seeing batteries which are 4 to 6, even 8,000 cycles. And that might not mean anything to you, but think about it this way. Let's just say you charge your vehicle twice a week. Okay. Which means you're charging your vehicle 50 times a year.
Okay.
If this thing's got 5,000 cycles, that's 50, 5,000, that's what?
I'm glad you're doing the math. Yeah, I'm glad you're doing the math and not me. But yeah, that's a lot of weeks.
There's a lot of weeks in there. So, these cars are going to last 10 or 20 plus years without any issues. They're going to last 500,000 miles, no issues.
All right.
And we've seen that already.
Okay. Well, James, we ask everybody who comes on GreenCars the Podcast, what car do you currently drive?
I drive a Tesla Model 3 Performance.
Okay.
And it's fast.
It's fast. Is that your favorite feature about it?
Yeah.
If you could have any EV, what would it be?
I like Porsche Taycans because I like fast. So I like sports cars. So
that's okay. I'm picking up on.
You've got a theme there.
Yeah, I'm picking up on your theme.
Yeah.
And that Porsche is quite the popular.
It's a very nice car.
I've heard.
Yes. But, our Model 3 Performance is 1/3 the price and almost as fast. So, that's not a bad deal for me. So.
All right. James Carter, Principal Consultant at Vision Mobility. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's check in with Dave now and see what kind of trouble he's getting into. Dave?
Hey, Trish. I'm over here with Tyler at Volvo, and this is amazing today. What a turnout.
Absolutely. No, Volvo has been part of the Electrify Expo since it first started back in 2021. And every year we keep coming back because, the customers, they're ready for EVs. And as a brand that's going to be fully electric by 2030, these are the customers we want to be engaging with. We want to show them what we currently have offered, but also what our future holds, just like the EX90 next to me.
And it's just gorgeous. Great car.
Yeah, we're beyond excited. This is going to be probably made in South Carolina at our factory there. And this is our future flagship SUV, standard 7 seats, fully electric vehicle with all the bells and whistles that you can imagine.
Incredible. And what is this big giant bus back here?
So that is our mobile studio. So the Volvo Mobile Studio is an immersion space. So guests will be able to go inside of the mobile studio. They'll learn about the Volvo brand. They'll learn about, where we've been in terms of history. Then also get a sneak peek at our latest products like EX90 as well. Exclusive things that most people won't even see at some of the retailers.
Amazing. Well, I sure appreciate your time today. This is fantastic.
Absolutely. No, this is very exciting. We're so glad that you got to stop by our stand.
Hey, Trish, I'm here with Robert, Ford Motor Company, and we are talking about the F-150 Lightning pickup truck, the Mach-E Mustang, and there's even a sort of concept vehicle. What's that called?
The F-150 Lightning switchgear. It's a technology demonstrator showing what the performance of electric vehicles to the next level.
Amazing. So they're even having test drives, which I'm hoping to get out there in a Mach-E today. And how has it been for you this morning?
It's been very busy, as you can see. There's lots of people who are interested in the Mustang Mach-E, the F-150 Lightning, and coming out and hanging out with us and talking about electric vehicles and charging. So we're really happy. We've done the Electrify Expo circuit for a year now, and it's been really awesome to see how many passionate electric vehicle owners come out here, as well as EV curious folks.
Yep, it's just going to get bigger and bigger.
That's the hope, yep. Yeah. Every time we see a large crowd, it gets us excited.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate your time today.
Yep.
And here we are at the Ford Motors test track, where they have a professional race driver taking me around the track. Nice and easy, just to see what the car feels like. And whoa, it's not what I expected. He's really tearing around here. And going into the first corner. Oh, this man's a maniac. What the hell is going on now? And at least he slowed down. Oh, I think I soiled myself. Oh, you crazed madman. Thank God it's over. And now, back to you, Trish.
You are a maniac.
Yes, professional maniac.
You did some crazy stuff out there.
Yeah, it's fun. Really fun.
Lots of really creative, fascinating people doing some incredible things in the electric world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, for us, is a wrap on this year's Electrify Expo.
I hope they'll have us back. Until next time, stay informed, stay charged. Follow us at GreenCars HQ. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Email us, thepodcast@greencars.com.